Have you ever really stopped and thought about the clothes you're wearing? I mean, how does a totally flat, two-dimensional piece of paper, the one with all the lines and numbers on it,
somehow transform into a collar that curves perfectly around your neck? It really does feel kind of like a magic trick. But you know what? It's not magic. It's just geometry.
Okay, so let's get into it. We're going to dive deep into the hidden art of the collar, and we'll be using a classic pattern-making handbook as our guide. We're about to crack the code, you and me, and figure out the language of lines and curves that turns a flat drawing into actual fashion.
Right. So, before anyone even thinks about cutting fabric or sewing a single stitch, there's the pattern. This is ground zero. It is the absolute foundation for everything that's about to happen.
You've got to think of a pattern as the architectural blueprint for clothing. It's the map that takes an idea floating around in someone's head and turns it into a real thing you can wear. And believe me, every single line, every curve, it all has a very specific job.
And the core of that map is something called the pattern block. This is basically our blank canvas. It's a template of the human torso that fits, but it has absolutely zero style. It's from this one super simple shape that a designer can create, well, pretty much an infinite number of different looks.
So, let's start with a total classic. We're going to take that pattern block and we're going to craft the most fundamental neckline out there. The simple, always elegant round neck.
Now, the goal here sounds simple, but it's actually pretty tricky. We need to create a curve that sits perfectly smooth at the base of the neck. No pulling, no weird buckling. It's all about total control over that line.
The whole thing breaks down into three main steps. First, we mark our basic starting and ending points. Then, we have to decide how low we want the front of the neckline to be. That's what's called the neck drop. And finally, you grab a special curved ruler, connect the dots, and draft that perfect, smooth curve.
Okay, now this is where it gets really cool. See that tiny number on the screen? 1/2 centimeter? That's it. The pattern tells us to lower the shoulder point by just this teeny tiny amount. And you might ask, why? Well, that is the secret. That little adjustment is what makes sure the final collar lies perfectly flat against your body. It's a tiny change that makes a huge difference. All right, we've totally mastered the curve. So now let's switch gears and build a completely different look. We're putting away the curved ruler and picking up a straight one to create that sharp, angular V-neck. Yeah, the V-neck is a whole different geometric puzzle. We're not worried about a flowing line anymore. The success of a great V-neck comes down to getting one single point absolutely perfect. So the process kind of looks the same, but how you do it is totally different. First, you decide how deep you want that V to be. Then it's just one clean, straight line right up to the shoulder. The last step is just cleaning up that point so the whole thing looks seamless. And here we go again. The magic is all in the tiny details. You see that little 0.3 centimeter adjustment right at the very tip of the V? I mean, it seems like nothing, right? But that tiny shift is what stops the neckline from gaping open. It's a super subtle but really powerful trick that keeps that V looking sharp.
And this just lays it all out so clearly. I mean, think about it. We started with the exact same pattern block for both of these, but just by using different geometry, a curve versus an angle, and making these tiny little adjustments, we get two completely different styles. So cool.
Okay, so up until now, we've just been changing the shape of the main garment itself. But now, let's add a brand new piece to the puzzle. We are officially moving from 2 dimensions into 3 by creating a stand-up collar. So this collar is a totally separate part. It's its own piece of fabric, and it has to be drawn with incredible precision. Its bottom edge has to perfectly match the length and the curve of the neckline we just made. It's basically like engineering a perfect joint between 2 separate parts. Now, to do this, you need to know a key bit of lingo, the SNP, which stands for side neck point. It's exactly what it sounds like, the spot where the side of your neck meets your shoulder. This point is like a non-negotiable landmark in pattern making. It's the anchor for pretty much any collar you can think of. So, the process here means creating a whole new pattern piece from scratch. First, you draw a rectangle based on the neckline's measurements. Then, you curve the bottom edge so it'll fit the garment perfectly. And finally, you shape the top edge, the part everyone's going to see, to create the final look. So when you kind of zoom out and look at everything we just did, it's pretty clear we haven't just been drawing lines. We've been speaking a language, a whole language made of lines, curves, and angles.
So what's the big takeaway here? Well, for one, a pattern isn't just a guide, it's a universal blueprint. And we've definitely seen how just a few millimeters can be the difference between a garment that fits perfectly and one that just doesn't work. At the end of the day, every piece of clothing tells a story, and that story is written in the simple, beautiful language of geometry.
And really, that's the heart of it all. Making a pattern isn't just a technical skill, it's the art of making choices. Like it says right here, every line is a choice. And the sum of all those tiny geometric choices, well, that's what we call style.